Welcome to the pod.
Absolutely, here we are.
First episode.
Excited?
Very excited.
Good stuff.
It's a new thing for us, but it's something that we're very keen and passionate about. Just so that you guys know what the pod is effectively going to be focusing on. I mean, it's mostly, as you can tell, it's car related. So it's the world around cars. Memories that cars bring, cars create. In terms of recommendations for cars, experiences that you've had with them, and of course, any sort of thoughts and suggestions on the subject. So it's going to be a real dive into the world around cars, and in fact, the lifestyle that it can give you.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. I mean, over the course of the pod, we want to be able to share some of the experiences and the memories that Jack and I have had around cars, where it's taken us, what we've done.
Absolutely.
And bring some of that to you guys, and also make some new memories of ourselves.
I think that's right. Well, I think without any further ado, let's just explain who we are, because obviously you'll be thinking, who are these two guys talking on the screen?
Go for it, Jack. Take it away.
So, in terms of my history, I've sort of always liked cars. So from a little kid, I can remember my dad worked in the sort of car industry, but not to the point of sort of selling or building, but it was around cars. I always loved going out in cars. I don't know about you, but it was, for me, a road trip was an exciting thing.
Absolutely.
I can still remember we'd go to the New Forest and we'd go all over the sort of back roads, and don't get me wrong, there wasn't that great helmsmanship. It was a slow sort of steady family drive, but it was a lot of fun. And I can remember my first car, I was thinking about this the other day, it was actually a Renault Clio. It was a red Renault Clio. But when I was a kid, I always wanted an MG Midget. I don't know why. I have to say that has gone from me now. I'm not so keen on having one. But yeah, very into cars. More recently, I've got a Porsche 718 Cayman, which I enjoy driving very much. And I'll perhaps talk about some of the other stuff we've had, which I've had, later on. But what about yourself?
Well, so I'm James, and I have always loved cars ever since I was yay big. And to be honest, that's taken me to some interesting places, both around the UK and into Europe and further afield, out to Japan. Always had an interest in, I suppose, kind of sports cars, performance cars, and classic cars to a certain extent. Been to lots of different places around Europe, including some of the car manufacturers, and seen their kind of history and exhibitions and where they build the cars. I've always been really super into driving, particularly, and where it can take you. Traveling around, seeing things.
I think that's a big point. Isn't it? It's not just a car as a means of getting you from A to B.
Absolutely.
It's what it can take you to, and frankly what it can give you.
And that's the sort of the things that we really want to touch on this podcast, over the course of the next several episodes, definitely.
So what was your first car?
Okay, so my first car was a blue Ford Fiesta, a 1 litre EcoBoost.
Great car.
I remember when we took it up to Scotland, we did the North Coast 500 with a couple of schoolmates.
I remember you saying this. You did this in one go, didn't you?
One fell swoop, 2,000 miles in 5 days, I certainly felt it after finishing. But I mean, what an amazing experience! I definitely recommend that to anyone listening. The North Coast 500 is a fantastic route. Some amazing scenery, some great driving roads. Definitely.
It's certainly on my radar. I've not done it yet, and I think it's something that 2025 may be the year.
I like it. Very good.
No, really good. So in terms of what we've owned, we've touched upon your first car.
Yeah.
What did you get after the Renault? Not the Renault. I had the Renault. After the Fiesta.
So after the Fiesta, I was kind of hankering for something a little bit more sporty, a little bit more performance. But I had a fairly limited budget still, so I went and
Well, how old
bought
would you have
a.
been?
So I was 19 when I bought this. I had the Fiesta for a couple of years, and then passed that on. And I went and bought a E46 330 Ci BMW, black, a really
Proper bit of
nice
kit.
condition. Yeah, the sort of black coupe style, really smart. And I had that for 4 years throughout sort of university, and I really enjoyed it. Even though I didn't drive it all the time, I still managed to do best part of 10,000 miles a year. That went all around Wales, certain parts of the UK into the Peak District, and then actually over to Luxembourg of all places. So yeah, it got quite a bit of use. And then I sold that, and I was looking for. I was trying to get in something a bit more mid-engine. I mean, the BMW are really handled sweetly, but I went to Thruxton. I did like a track experience, right? And
Would you recommend those?
I would. I really would recommend. Thruxton's a great track, and the team are really good over there. But when I did a track experience, I think the warm-up car was a Porsche Cayman, right?
Yeah.
And you did a few laps
see
in
where you're
it. It
going
was
with
to,
this.
it was to try and get you into the sort of into the zone with the track. Anyway, I was so impressed. I was so impressed by it. I thought I have to have one of those, and that is what I went out and bought. And I've had that for the last nearly 4 years. And I've loved it.
And just to be clear, it's a 987 Gen 2. Isn't it?
That's exactly right. So that was the one I drove out on the track, and I thought I'm going to have one of those. Yeah, to be honest, I haven't looked back.
No.
So go on. What about you?
It is a great car. I won't go into detail about what happened to the Renault Clio because, quite frankly, I'm a bit embarrassed about it. It didn't meet a happy ending. It's fair to say. I did write it off.
Okay.
Wasn't my fault.
Good to
I
clear
think
that
the
up.
insurance, I think it was declared 50-50. Essentially, somebody pulled into the side of me. But anyway, so moved on from there, and I had a VW Lupo with the money which the insurers paid out. And that lasted me throughout uni. I didn't take it to uni with me. I left it at home, but I used to, I really used to enjoy driving it as soon as I went home. And to be honest, it's the most reliable car I've ever owned.
Can't say better than that.
I think tyres were the only thing that I had to replace.
Yeah.
And following that, I also joined you on a BMW theme.
Nice.
So I had a Z4, the Gen 1 Z4, so 2003. It was a sort of a gunmetal grey, 2.5 straight six.
Nice.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. At the time, I used to write for Drive Tribe, so I used to put some articles up there, and I have written about it on there. But it was effectively, for me, it was a real game-changing moment, not just for cars, but for just my enjoyment outside of work, anything you wanted to do socially. It just elevated it for me. I absolutely loved it. And I kept that right up until the point where I had to get rid of it. It'd done about 120,000 miles.
Yeah.
It was, not in a particularly good state, let's put it that way. And then I moved on. I had a 4 Series for a bit, not particularly exciting. Then I had an M140i, which was a great car, actually. Bought it during COVID, got it for a really good price. I think I paid about 17. I think they're still trading for about that now, actually. If not
indeed,
slightly more.
Indeed.
So maybe that was a bad move. And then I got an M2 for a bit. That was
Maybe
a
not such
car.
a bad move then. Yeah.
That was good fun. Would definitely recommend the M2. Very, very capable car.
It's a bit of a BMW theme here.
I definitely went through the Beamers. And similarly to you, as I've just said, now got the 718.
Very good.
But yeah, so that's a sort of brief history, I suppose, of cars.
Fantastic.
But, in terms of what you would like to own, is there anything out there at the moment? I mean, apart from everything, everything in here.
Where do we start, Jack?
I was going to say, is there anything out there which you think, actually, maybe not right now, but really want one of them?
So I've been fortunate enough, even though I've only kind of actually owned 3 cars myself, I've been fortunate enough to kind of wangle my way into some interesting cars for the weekend or for a week. I've had some really, good driving experiences. I mean, what I've driven fairly recently, I had a go in Lotus Emira. which I thought was absolutely fantastic driving experience.
Is that the first edition?
Yeah, that was the first edition V6 with the manual. Felt like a super special car.
Yeah.
I spent some time in, did about 500 miles in Alpine A110, which really impressed me, the dynamics of that. And I think you've
Those are
driven one of those
incredibly
as well,
capable.
haven't
I have.
you?
I've
Yeah.
done a similar thing. I
Yeah.
had the sort of the higher spec one. I can't remember.
The GT, wasn't
The
it?
GT.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah,
I think
you mentioned,
300
yeah.
horsepower.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but in a car that weighs very, very little.
1,100 kilograms or
There you
something.
go.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a pocket rocket.
Yeah.
But we'll maybe come on to that in a bit as to why I wouldn't necessarily want one as a daily driver. But,
Okay. So
but going back to what
yeah.
you might like.
And then I suppose the car that really impressed me overall, and there is a bit of a theme here. You can see sort of mid-engined two-seater sports cars. I spent some time in a GTS 4-litre Cayman, and I know it's quite predictable that I would like a car like that, and I know they're popular, but really impressive.
Well, they're popular
dynamically,
for a reason.
exactly.
They're very good
Yeah.
cars.
Super well built, very well put together, refinement's excellent, but also special enough, if not quite as special perhaps as a driving experience as something like the Amira. I would say 90% of it, but it's so much more usable on a day-to-day basis, and just flies under the radar. So I think something like a 4-litre Cayman would be where I'd want to
It's a really
go.
interesting point, isn't it? Because actually, when you talk about mid-engine cars, you generally don't think of them as being daily drivers. But
No.
actually, they can be daily drivers.
Yeah,
And
indeed.
I think you've just got to know that you want the reliability, which the Porsche brand does generally offer you.
Yeah.
And you also want it to be able to carry things you need. Your luggage, your shopping.
They're supremely practical.
And I think for me, that's where the A110 fell short.
Definitely.
When I was rocking around in it, I noticed that the luggage space, all right, you might say it's a two-seater mid-engine car, it's not going to be that commodious. But actually, the Caymans in particular, having two boots, the one at the front is very spacious.
It is.
And so you can put a lot in it. And I think it's something that makes it a more compelling case as a daily driver.
Definitely, I would agree with that. And also, one of the trades of the Alpine is because it is genuinely lightweight. When you're on the motorway or it's very windy, I remember going over the Severn Bridge on quite a blustery day. I was getting blown around quite a bit. It was a pretty unnerving
It's not a
driving
cruiser,
experience.
no.
No, but as a B road basher down some Welsh
hard
B
to beat,
roads,
isn't it?
pretty compelling case. Yeah. So what about you then, Jack? What's taking your fancy?
Well,
on the market?
I still want a 911. I will
Okay,
get
yeah,
one at some
yeah.
stage. At the moment, I'm very happy with the 718. I think a 4-litre would just be that bit nicer.
Yeah.
But for me, is it worth spending that much more
Yeah.
than what mine is at the moment? I should say, mine's the 2-litre.
Yeah.
But just to get, a bit more performance, not a lot more,
Yeah.
but to get, that 6-cylinder howl.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're paying for.
That is what you're paying for.
And maybe it is worth it, but at the moment for me, it's not something that I'm gonna change. So I think keep mine for a bit longer, possibly change it for a 911 in due course.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
So what 911 would you go for?
Well, this is the question, isn't it? I mean,
Because there's a lot of choice, right?
Even just here, there's a lot of choice. But I think for me, it would be, money no object. I think, hypothetically, GT3 Touring or the new ST. But obviously, money is object, or rather an object, which I don't have that much of. So I wouldn't be looking for that. I would probably look at a 991 generation Carrera or Carrera S, something like that. Nice. I think that's a very good looking car. Very respectable car. And I think it's at the right age where it's going to be reliable, you can daily drive it, but they've also, because it's a little bit older, they've come down in price quite a lot. So, and I think they're probably going to remain around that price for a little while. They're not going to drop too much.
No, I think they're pretty pretty stable at the moment, and a good buy. Yeah, nice car.
No, absolutely. But what I would say is a word of caution when you are going out buying cars. I did buy an Alpine A110 for a bit. I had it for a little while, but just make sure that just because you're buying it from a main dealer, you check it through as well. As I say, I thought I wanted one for a bit, realised actually probably not the car for me. But just check things like, the tyres, check everything works properly.
Yeah.
Just because it's main dealer, I think I was guilty of this. You assume it's going to be, absolutely mint. It's going to come fully checked out, perfect road condition. And frankly, from my experience, that wasn't true. So I do think, double check wherever you're buying your car. I think
and we're going to talk a bit more about this in future episodes, what to look out for, how to really nail the buying experience, but, history, condition, all of these things that don't necessarily stand out to you when you're just looking at a car on a screen. But there are some cues within the description, the way the car is described and who it's with. I mean, today, and we'll talk a bit more about this perhaps in part 2, but, we're a really, really well-known Porsche specialist, Cameron Sports Cars, and these guys do retail some really nice stuff. So just make sure you look for the right car.
Absolutely. But in terms of what we've been up to lately, I'll tell you a hidden gem, which I discovered with you actually the other week, was the cafe at Chavenage House. So
very true. Tell us about that.
Chavenage, for those of you who have not necessarily been there, will probably have seen it on the TV. I mean, it was most recently featured in Rivals TV series.
Very good.
It's also been in Poldark and various other sort of period dramas. But James and Emma, who have now taken that over, have done a brilliant job at turning one of the old barns into a cafe. Really enjoyed that.
And indeed, they're on YouTube as well. We'll give them a bit of a shout out. Life at the Manor, really, really good.
Yeah, it's a good episode.
Good channel.
They're just sort of detailing what they're doing to it, trying to, keep it up and running.
Super, yeah. So, no, I mean, in terms of what I've been up to recently in cars, I've just written an article for Porsche Post, so it's like the Porsche Club GB magazine, and that's about the Euro Tour that I did in 2024, so last year. I've got a bit of a plug, and in this we really focused on that's the Pyrenees shot there with the Cayman. But it was all about, if you were going to do a road trip where you were focusing on sort of seeing some of the best roads and scenery in Europe, where would you go? What would you do? And hopefully serves as a bit of inspiration to those who are looking to do a similar trip. So in the January edition of Porsche Post, any main dealer will
You went with your dad as well,
I did, yeah. We did it for his 60th birthday. Really good time. Good way to market.
He's big into cars.
Hugely into cars, definitely, yeah.
Well, he's an engineer, so...
absolutely, yeah. So you'd expect it, like father, like son.
Well, I think as a first episode, I think we've covered what we want to cover there.
I'd agree.
But coming up, obviously, we're going to have part 2, where we're going to do a wander around of some of the stuff that Camerons have got for sale, and perhaps some of the stuff that they haven't. Do join us for that. And as James has said, coming up in episodes, we're going to bring you some more content, which is obviously car related.
Absolutely.
But hopefully some interviews, so talking to people who are involved in the car industry in some way, and finding out really what makes them tick and a bit about their passion. So do join us in future episodes.
Thanks very much. See you then, guys.